Picture a city built on water. Now fill it with 500,000 people who have nowhere to go to the bathroom except the canals they drink from. Add plague ships quarantined just offshore, close enough to hear the screaming. Had merchants so rich they carpet their floors with silk. And beggars so desperate they eat rats. Had political assassinations carried out by a secret council that answers to no one. And executions by drowning in sacks weighted with stones, and a carnival culture where everyone wears masks because nobody trusts anybody. That's Venice, the most serene republic. La Serenima, the city that shouldn't exist but does anyway, rising out of the lagoon like a fever dream, made of marble and gold, and human ambition so raw it burns. We're going back there tonight, not as tourists gawking at gondolas. We're living it. One day, one apprentice glassblower everything he would have seen, smelled, heard, tasted, feared, and survived on a spring morning in 1432 when the plague was always just one ship away, and the glass furnaces of Murano burned day and night. And if you don't know me, my name is Henry. So, I make these history stories, and honestly, I have no clue if anyone actually sleeps to them, or if you're all just weirdos who like hearing about medieval Venetians drowning in their own canals. Either way, subscribe if you want. Get comfortable. We're going to Venice. Here we go. Your eyes open to heat, not daylight. Heat. For a moment, maybe half a second, you've forgotten where you are. Then it hits you. Not smell this time. Temperature. The furnace is already roaring somewhere below, and the heat rises through the floorboards of the workshop dormitory like the breath of something alive and hungry. Then the smell. It's not just one smell, it's layers. First, the acrid tang of burning beechwood, the only fuel Maestro Vincenzo allows in his furnace. Beech burns hotter and cleaner than pine, and glass needs heat that would melt iron. The wood smoke is thick and rainous, clinging to everything, your clothes, your hair, your lungs. Second, the mineral smell of silica sand shipped in barrels from the Ticino River, mixed with soda ash from the Levanton lime from crushed seashells. When it melts, it smells like the earth itself being transformed, like stone becoming liquid. It's a smell that gets into your skin and never leaves. Third, the sharp chemical bite of the colorants. Cobalt for blue, copper for red, manganese for purple. Maestro keeps them locked in a cabinet, but their smell leaks out anyway. Metallic, poisonous, beautiful. Fourth, sweat. Yours and everyone else's. The workshop holds 6 apprentices, and in the summer months, the heat is so intense that you wake up drenched. It's April now, so it's bearable, barely. And underneath it all, the smell of Venice itself drifting across the lagoon from the main islands. Seaweed, rotting wood, human waste, salt. The particular stink of a city built on water where everything eventually decays. Welcome to Murano, April 1432. You're lying on a straw mattress in the apprentices' dormitory above Maestro Vincenzo Dalmoro's glassworks, one of 47 furnaces operating on this island, each one feeding Venice's insatiable appetite for beauty. Your name is Matteo Rossi. You're 17 years old, and you arrived here 2 years ago from Padua with a letter of introduction from your uncle, a minor merchant who owed Maestro a favor and absolutely no idea what you were getting into. Back home, everyone said Murano would make you rich or kill you. They weren't wrong about the second part. The first part is still unclear. The bells are already ringing. Not just one church. Every church on Murano and across the water in Venice proper. San Donato is closest, its bell tower visible from the dormitory window. The bell called the campanile has been ringing the hours since the 1300s, and its tone is so deep you feel it in your chest before you hear it with your ears. It's the Marangona, The work bell calling Venice to labor, 5 in the morning in April, 6 o'clock in winter, 4 in summer. The sun isn't even properly up yet, and already the city is waking. You need to get up. Maestro will have your hide if the furnace isn't ready when he arrives, and Maestro arrives early. Always. The molten glass doesn't care about your sleep schedule. It's ready when it's ready. And if you're not there to work it, 2 years of training mean nothing. The wooden floor is warm under your bare feet. The heat from the furnace below radiates through the boards. Your fellow apprentice, a skinny kid named Luca, from somewhere near Treviso, is still asleep in the bed you share. Yeah, you share a bed. That's normal. Most apprentices do. Privacy is a luxury nobody at your level can afford. At least Luca doesn't snore too badly, and he doesn't steal the blanket like Paolo used to before he... You don't think about Paolo. You splash water on your face from the basin. The water is cool, brought up yesterday from the well in the courtyard, drawn from the cistern that collects rainwater. Venice has no fresh water of its own. Everything you drink either falls from the sky or arrives by boat from the mainland. The Murano system is good, though, better than some of the ones in Venice proper, where they say the water tastes like copper and sickness. Your clothes are where you left them. A rough linen shirt, off-white, stained with ash and sweat. Canvas breeches that used to be brown, but are now a mottled gray. Wool stockings with holes in the heels. Leather shoes with wooden soles. The left one cracked and held together with wire. Your pride is your leather apron. It's thick cowhide, scorched and stained, but it marks you as a gar. An apprentice glassblower, rather than a common laborer or a servitor who just tends the furnace. Appearances matter in Venice. They matter more than almost anything. Even on Morireno, even among people who work with their hands, there are hierarchies, levels. The apron says you're learning a craft that could someday make you a master. That could someday get you a seat in the Glassmakers Guild. That could someday mean you're somebody. By the time you get downstairs, Maestro Vincenzo is already in the workshop checking the furnace. He's a compact man, maybe 50, with a face like weathered ship timber and hands that are surprisingly delicate despite the burn scars. Those hands can shape molten glass into forms so perfect they seem to have grown rather than been made. He's taught you maybe a quarter of what he knows, and already your head swims with information about temperatures and timing, about the precise moment when glass goes from workable to unmanageable, about which colors can be mixed and which will poison each other. You're late, he says without looking up. You're not late. The Marangona just finished ringing. He says this every morning. You've learned not to argue. The workshop is larger than most, maybe 40 feet wide and 60 deep, built of brick and stone to contain the heat. The furnace dominates the center, a massive beehive structure made of fire-resistant clay, standing 8 feet tall with 3 openings called botch, where the glass melts in ceramic crucibles. The fire inside burns at over 1,500 degrees, hot enough to turn sand into liquid. Hot enough to kill you if you're careless. Around the furnace, the tools of the trade, the pontello, the long iron blowpipe, the bossel, the tongs for shaping, the taganti, the shears, the scagno, the master's bench, worn smooth by generations of glassmakers. Everything has its place. Everything is precisely where it needs to be, because in glass making, hesitation means ruin. The workshop opens onto a courtyard shared with 2 other glass works. You can hear them already. The roar of their furnaces, the shouts of their apprentices, the eternal competition that drives Morireno. Every workshop is trying to outdo the others. A new technique, a brighter color, a more impossible shape. The secrets are guarded like their military intelligence, because in a way, they are. Venice doesn't tolerate glass makers leaving. The penalties are severe. Your skills belong to the Republic. If you try to take them elsewhere, the Council of 10 will find you. And when the Council of 10 finds you, you don't come back. But that's a worry for masters, not apprentices. You're not important enough to flee. Not yet. The batch is wrong, Maestro says, stirring the molten glass in the crucible with an iron rod. He pulls it out, examines the glowing drop clinging to the end. Too much soda. Who measured this? Luca, Maestro. Luca. He says the name like it's a curse. Find him. Tell him if he can't measure soda ash, he can go back to Treviso and measure pig shit instead. You climb back upstairs. Luca is awake now, pulling on his clothes with the panicked speed of someone who's just realized he's late. Maestro wants you, you say. The batch is wrong. Luca's face goes pale. He's been here 6 months. Still new enough to be terrified of making mistakes. You remember that feeling. You're not sure when it stopped being terror and started being just constant low-level anxiety. How wrong? Too much soda. Murder. He's already running for the stairs. You follow more slowly. The day has started the way it always starts, with heat and urgency, and the knowledge that molten glass waits for no one. The corrected batch takes an hour to reach working temperature. During that time, you and the other apprentices prepare the day's work, cleaning tools, organizing the colored glass rods, canner that will be used for decoration, sweeping the floor for the 100th time because glass, dust, and sand get everywhere, and a dirty workshop is a dangerous workshop. Giovanni, the senior apprentice, is already working at the Scagno, shaping a simple drinking glass. He's 22, been here 7 years, and he's good. Not as good as Maestro, but good enough that he started taking commissions of his own under Maestro supervision. Another 2 years, and he'll be a lavorante, a journeyman, free to work for wages, or even open his own workshop if he can afford it. You watch him work. The movements are hypnotic. The gather dipping the pontello into the crucible, pulling out a glob of molten glass that glows orange-white. The first blow, a short, sharp breath that starts the bubble forming inside the shaping on the marva. The iron plate where the glass is rolled and formed, back to the furnace to reheat, more blowing, more shaping, the glass lengthening, thinning, becoming something with purpose. He shapes it with the briselle, the wooden paddles and metal tongs that look medieval but haven't changed in centuries because they work. A little pressure here, a slight twist there. The glass responds like it's alive, like it wants to become the shape Giovanni is coaxing from it. 10 minutes from gather to finish. He snaps the glass free from the pontello with a sharp tap, catches it with a rod coated in beeswax, and carries it to the annealing oven. The temper, where it will cool slowly overnight, too fast, and it shatters from thermal shock. Patience is built into every stage. Not bad, Maestro says. He's been watching from his stool in the corner, eyes missing nothing. The stem is thick. Fix that next time. Yes, Maestro. Maestro turns to you. Matteo, you're doing goblet stems today. Your stomach drops slightly. Goblet stems are difficult. They're thin, delicate, and they have to be perfectly symmetrical. You've done maybe 20 in the past 6 months. Half of them cracked. The other half were acceptable. Not good. Acceptable. Yes, Maestro. Don't waste the glass. We're not made of money. This is objectively untrue. Maestro Vincenzo is one of the most successful glassmakers on Morano. His pieces sell to nobles in Venice, to merchants in Constantinople, to collectors as far away as France and the German lands. He's not rich the way the great merchant families are rich, the Contarini, the Mucinigo, the Corner, but he owns his workshop outright, employs 6 apprentices and 2 journeymen, and has enough money to commission his own tomb in San Donato when the time comes. But complaining about money is what masters do. It's part of the performance. You play your role. Silent, obedient, grateful for the opportunity to learn. The first gather is terrifying. You dip the pontello into the crucible. Feel the weight of the molten glass. Pull it out glowing like a small sun. The heat hits your face even through the leather apron. Your hands know the movements now. 2 years of repetition have carved them into muscle memory. But your brain still screams that you're holding liquid fire on the end of a metal stick. You blow gently, just enough to start the bubble. Too much, and it popped. Too little, and it stays solid. The resistance tells you everything. The give of the glass as air enters, the way it stretches. Roll it on the marva. The glass flattens slightly, evening out. Back to the furnace, opening to reheat. The color shifts from orange to yellow-white. Now more blowing, more shaping. The bostle in your left hand squeezing gently to elongate the form. The stem is emerging, thin, thinner. You can see light through it now. Stop. Maestro says you freeze. He walks over, examines your work. His face gives nothing away. The bubble is off-center, see there. He points with one scarred finger. It'll crack when it cools. Start over. You don't argue. You crack the glass off the pontello. Toss the failed piece into the colored bin, the scrap bucket where broken glass goes to be remelted. Nothing is wasted in a glass works. Even failure gets recycled. Second attempt better. The bubble is centered this time. The stem is thin and even. You can feel it's right before Maestro says anything. Acceptable, he says, which from Maestro means good. Maybe even very good. You carry it to the temper. Place it carefully among the other pieces cooling there. Your first really successful goblet stem. It'll be attached to a bowl tomorrow, either by you or by Giovanni. And then it'll be sold to someone who will drink wine from it without ever thinking about the 17-year-old apprentice who shaped it from sand and fire. That's the craft. Anonymous, dangerous, beautiful. The morning passes in heat and repetition. By the time the church bells ring, tercer 9 o'clock, you've made 3 more stems. 2 acceptable, 1 perfect. Your hands are shaking from the sustained attention. Your face is sunburned from the furnace heat. Your lungs ache from breathing air that's half smoke. Break. Maestro says, quote, 0 Matteo. He catches your eye. You're going to Venice this afternoon. I need you to deliver an order to Signor Gamani. Take the noon tra. Don't daw. Your heart lifts. Venice. You've been trapped on Morarano for 2 weeks straight, and the island is beautiful but small, and you're 17, and you need to see something other than furnaces and canals that smell like dead fish. Yes, Maestro. Which order? The goblets for his daughter's wedding. 24 pieces. They're wrapped in the storeroom. Handle them like they're made of prayer and spider silk, because if you break even one, I'm selling you to the arsenal's ballast. The arsenal workers, the shipbuilders. They work in conditions that make glass blowing look gentle. I'll be careful, Maestro. The Tratto the ferry runs between Morareno and Venice every hour during daylight. It's a broad, flat-bottom boat rowed by 2 oarsmen who stand at the stern and bow, pushing long oars in a rhythm that hasn't changed in centuries. The fare's 2 soldi, about half what you'd pay for a gondola. But then the trag doesn't take you door to door. It just crosses the lagoon and dumps you at the Fondamenta Nove, the northern waterfront of Venice proper. You board with the package wrapped in oiled cloth and tied with cord. 24 Venetian goblets, each one worth more than you make in a month. The weight is substantial but manageable. You hold it like Maestro said, like prayer and spider silk. The Trigto is crowded. A priest in black robes reading from a breviary. 2 merchants in fur-trimmed coats arguing about the price of pepper. A woman with a basket of live chickens. A boy your age, maybe younger, with the haunted look of someone who hasn't eaten in days. Venice is full of those boys. Every orphan, every younger son with no inheritance, every gambler who lost everything. They all wash up here eventually. The boat pushes off. The Osmond grunt with effort. The lagoon opens up around you. And when I say lagoon, I need you to understand what that means. In 1432, this isn't a bay. This is a vast, shallow sea dotted with islands, some inhabited, some just mud flats and marsh grass. The water is brown-green, cloudy with silt. The depth varies from a few inches to 20 feet, and the channels shift with every storm. Only the Venetians know the safe passages. Every other navy that's tried to attack Venice has run ground on sandbanks and been slaughtered. The city itself rises out of the water like something impossible, like someone took a dream of marble and gold and Byzantine excess and somehow convinced it to stay solid instead of dissolving back into imagination. You can see the skyline from here. The domes of San Marco, the bell tower, the campanile rising 323 feet above the piazza, visible from 10 miles away. The DOA's palace with its pink and white facade, the cluster of church towers, the palazzi lining the Grand Canal, their Gothic windows glittering in the noon sun, and everywhere, the water. The city sits so low that high tides flood the squares. The canals are highways carrying everything: people, goods, waste, the dead. Venice is built on wood pilings driven into the mud, and those pilings are rotting slowly, always, so that the city is simultaneously eternal and temporary. It's been here for 1,000 years. It'll be here for 1,000 more, people say. But you can smell the decay underneath the glory. The Teto passes a plague ship on the way across. You know it's a plague ship because it's flying the yellow flag, the quarantine signal, and it's anchored far from any dock, just sitting in the middle of the lagoon like something toxic that nobody wants to touch, which is exactly what it is. It's a merchant vessel, probably from the east, maybe Alexandria, maybe Constantinople, maybe farther, and somewhere on that ship, someone is dying of the pestilence. Maybe the whole crew is dead already. The ship will sit there for 40 days. Quaranti, which is where the word quarantine comes from, and if anyone's still alive at the end of that time, they'll be allowed to dock and unload. If not, the ship will be burned. Cargo and all. You've heard stories about plague ships, how the bodies pile up in the holds, how the rats abandon the vessels and swim for shore, carrying the sickness with them, how sometimes you can hear the screaming from the mainland, even though the ships are anchored a mile out. Venice has been hit by plague 7 times in the past century. The worst was 1348. The Black Death, which killed half the city. Your grandmother survived it. She used to tell you about streets full of bodies, about entire families dying in a single night, about the fear that made people abandon their own children if they showed symptoms. The current outbreak is smaller, just a few deaths a month. The authorities are vigilant. Any ship from a plague port gets quarantined. Any house with a case gets boarded up, the family sealed inside. It's brutal, but it works mostly. The Trigetta Oismen give the plague ship a wide berth. Nobody even looks at it directly, like eye contact might be enough to invite the contagion. You're glad when it's behind you. The Teto bumps against the dock at Fondament. You step off carefully, the package in your arms, and immediately you're hit by the noise. Venice is loud, not loud like a battlefield or a storm, loud like 10,000 people compressed into 1 square mile, all of them talking and shouting and arguing and singing and praying at the same time. Street vendors, pesce fresco, fresh fish, vino, vino decree, scar, scarp, a priest chanting outside a church, a group of sailors singing a dirty song in Greek, a baby crying, a dog barking, the slap of water against stone, the creak of a gondola being pulled through a narrow canal, the splash of something. You don't want to know what, being thrown out of a window. The smells are even stronger than the sounds. Fish. Obviously, the Venetians eat fish for every meal because meat is expensive, and the church forbids it most days anyway. But also rotting vegetables, human waste, incense from the churches, the salt and rot smell of the lagoon at low tide, bread baking somewhere, and underneath it all, the particular smell of a city built on water, where everything is slightly damp and slightly moldy all the time. You've been here 2 years, and you still haven't adjusted to the smell. You're not sure anyone does. You just stop noticing after a while. The streets, well, they're not streets. They're cully, narrow pedestrian alleys, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. And they twist and turn and dead-end into canals with no warning. If you don't know where you're going, you'll get lost in minutes. But you do know where you're going. Signor Gimani's Pilato is in the Solo district, which means crossing the Grand Canal at the Rialto Bridge, which means navigating half of Venice on foot, clutching a fortune in glass, trying not to get robbed or knocked into a canal. You start walking. The package is heavy. Not unbearably so, but after the first 10 minutes of walking, your arms start to ache. 24 goblets wrapped in cloth and packed in a wooden frame that Maestro built specifically for transport. The frame distributes the weight, but it's still awkward, too wide to tuck under one arm too, even for a moment. You navigate by landmarks the way everyone does in Venice. The city has no street signs, no maps that ordinary people can read. You learn it the way you'd learn a forest by memorizing the shape of buildings, the turns of canals, the positions of churches. From Fonda Nova, you head south past the church of Madonna d'Otto with its brick facade and Gothic arches, past the Rio, the canal called Santa Caterina, where 2 gondolers are shouting at each other about right-of-way. Their language is so foul that a passing nun crosses herself and mutters a prayer. Gondolers, they're their own species in Venice. Arrogant, loud, territorial. They dress better than most merchants. Bright sashes, ribbons on their hats, silver buttons on their coats. Their boats are their pride. Each gondola is custom-built, asymmetrical, longer on the left side to compensate for the single oar on the right. Painted black by law since the sumptu restrictions of 1562. Wait, no, that's later. In 1432, the gondolas are still brightly painted, reds and blues and greens. Some even have gilding. The gondolers are fighting because one of them cut across the bow of the other. Technically, there are rules about canal navigation. Priority goes to boats turning left. Gondolas loaded with goods have right-of-way over passenger gondolas. Funeral gondolas have priority over everything. In practice, it's chaos. The strongest oarsman wins. You keep walking. The car narrows to maybe 4 feet across. The buildings rise 3 and 4 stories on either side, their upper floors jutting out slightly, casting the alley into permanent shadow. Laundry hangs between the windows. Shirts shift stockings dripping onto the stones below. Man empties a chamber pot from a 3rd-floor window. You hear the splash behind you and walk faster. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of traffic. Venetian stone mini cut from quarries in Istria across the Adriatic. It's a type of limestone that resists water better than most stone, which is important when your entire city floods twice a month during aqua alter, high tide. You pass a stutgo, a covered passageway that runs beneath a building connecting one street to another. It's dark inside. You can hear water dripping. Somewhere in the shadows, something moves. Could be a cat, could be a rat, could be a person. You don't slow down to check. Venice is safe as cities go. The Republic takes security seriously. The Signori denote the night watchmen patrol regularly. Crime is punished swiftly and publicly. Thieves lose hands. Murderers are drowned in the lagoon in weighted sacks. Traitors are strangled between the columns in the Pata, their bodies left hanging as a warning. But safe is relative. This is still a medieval city, still a place where alleys dead end at canals, and a single misstep means drowning. Still a place where the Council of Ten, the secret police, basically can arrest you without charge, and you disappear into the posy, the prison cells beneath the Doe's palace that flood at high tide. You're careful. You keep to the main routes. You don't make eye contact with anyone who looks like trouble. A beggar is sitting against a wall, his hand out. He's missing his left leg below the knee, amputated from the look of the scar. Could be a veteran from one of Venice's endless wars with Genoa or Milan or the Turks. Could be an accident victim. Could be a punishment. Venice doesn't hesitate to maim criminals. Per carata, he mumbles. For charity. You don't have money to spare. Apprentices don't. But you've got a small loaf of bread in your pouch, part of your breakfast that you saved, and you drop it into his lap without breaking stride. Dear Benedica, he calls after you. God bless you. You're not sure God is paying attention to Venice. If he is, he's got a strange sense of humor surrounding the richest merchants in Christendom with plague and war and moral decay, building a city on water that by all logic should have sunk into the lagoon centuries ago, letting the whole thing keep functioning anyway, year after year. Miracle after miracle. The Cali opens onto a small campo, a square. This one is called Campo San Baldo, named for the church that squats at one end. The church is small, unremarkable. Every neighborhood in Venice has one. Some neighborhoods have 3 or 4. The Venetians take their religion seriously, or at least they take the performance of religion seriously. The Campo has a well in the center, not a natural well. Venice has no fresh water. Remember, but a Vera de Pozzo, a system. The wellhead is carved from white Istrian stone, decorated with the coat of arms of whoever paid for its construction. This one shows 3 stars above a tower. You don't recognize the family. A group of women are drawing water, their buckets tied to ropes. They're talking. Gossiping, really, about someone named Lucia, who apparently ran off with a sailor and is now living in sin somewhere in Dalmatia. The women's voices rise and fall, mixing scandal with laundry advice and complaints about the price of flour. You cut across the Campo. A group of children are playing a game that involves throwing stones at a chalk circle drawn on the pavement. One of them, a boy maybe 8 years old, nearly crashes into you. You sidestep, keeping the package safe. Watch it, Cologne, the boy shouts. You don't respond. Getting into an argument with a Venetian child is a losing proposition. They're feral. Half of them grow up on the streets, learning to steal and fight before they learn to read. Another Kell. This one runs alongside a canal. The smell is stronger here. The canal is dark green, nearly opaque. Things float in it. Vegetable peelings, a dead pigeon, something that might be a shoe. The canal water is tidal. It flows in and out with the lagoon, but it's still essentially a very slow-moving sewer. You see a man dumping a bucket of something unspeakable directly into the water. It's illegal, technically. The Republic has laws against fouling the canals. In practice, everyone does it. Where else are you supposed to put your waste? There's no sanitation system, no sewers in the modern sense, just the canals and the tide, and the hope that everything eventually washes out to sea. A gondola glides past, pulled by a man in a red cap. His passenger is a woman in an elaborate dress, silk by the look of it, with a mask covering the upper half of her face. The mask is white, decorated with gold leaf around the eyes. It's not carnival season. Carnival is in February before Lent, but wealthy Venetians wear masks year-round. Privacy, anonymity, the ability to conduct business or affairs without being recognized. Venice is a city of masks, literal and figurative. Everyone is performing. Everyone has secrets. You keep walking. The streets grow more crowded as you approach the Rialto. This is the commercial heart of Venice. The financial center, the place where fortunes are made and lost daily. The Rialto Bridge, the only bridge across the Grand Canal, has been here in various forms since the 11th century. The current version is a wooden pontoon bridge, wide enough for 2 lanes of foot traffic, plus shops built along both sides. It's a temporary structure, rebuilt every few decades when the previous version rots or collapses. Nobody's figured out how to build a permanent stone bridge across a span this wide, over water this deep. Not yet. That'll come later in 1591 when they finally build the stone arch bridge that still stands in your time. But in 1432, it's wood, and it's magnificent anyway. You can see it from 2 streets away. The bridge rises above the surrounding buildings. Its central arch high enough to let tall masted boats pass underneath. The shops lining the sides are doing brisk business. Goldsmiths, money changers, cloth merchants, booksellers. Every square foot of space is valuable here. Rent on a Rialto shop costs more per year than Maestro Vincenzo pays for his entire Morano workshop. The crowd thickens. You're moving slower now, shuffling forward in a mass of people, all trying to cross the bridge at once. Merchants with ledgers under their arms, servants carrying parcels, priests, prostitutes. Yes, in the middle of the day, because Venice is practical about these things. If there's money to be made, someone's making it. A street vendor is selling Frito-Lay, fried dough balls dusted with sugar. The smell is incredible. Your stomach growls. You haven't eaten since the bread at breakfast, and it's past noon now, but you don't have money for a free-to, and anyway, your hands are full. You reach the bridge approach. The wooden planks are worn smooth and slightly springy under your feet. The shops crowd in on both sides, their signs hanging overhead. A goldsmith shop displays rings and chains in the window. Real gold, not the cheap gilt stuff. A money changer sits behind a table covered with coins from a dozen different countries. Venetian ducats, Florentine, Florence, Genoese, Genovani, Byzantine, Hyperpyra, even some strange Eastern coins with script you can't read. Venice runs on trade, and trade runs on currency exchange. The money changers are the grease that keeps the whole machine functioning. They're also frequently corrupt, clipping coins and debasing the metal, which is why the Republic regulates them heavily. You can lose your right hand for cheating on the exchange rate. Some money changers have lost more than their hands halfway across the bridge. The crowd stops moving completely, gridlock ahead. You can hear shouting. Someone's dropped something. A barrel, maybe. And it's blocking the entire walkway. People are yelling at each other in Venetian dialect, which is different enough from the Tuscan Italian you learned in Padua that you can only catch about half of it. The crush of bodies is intense. You're wedged between a fat merchant who smells like garlic and sweat and a woman carrying a cage of live ducks. The ducks are quacking frantically. The merchant is complaining in a loud voice about the incompetence of everyone in Venice under the age of 40. You hold the package higher, trying to keep it from getting crushed. Your arms are screaming now. The weight that seemed manageable 20 minutes ago is becoming unbearable. The gridlock clears. The barrel is rolled to one side. The crowd surges forward. You make it across the bridge. From the Rialto, you head southwest towards San Marco. This means navigating the maze of streets between the Grand Canal and the Piazza. The only square in Venice actually called a piazza. Every other square is a campo. This one is special. The streets here are slightly wider, slightly cleaner. This is the governmental and religious heart of Venice. The buildings are grander, more marble, less brick. The windows larger, the doorways more ornate. You pass the Church of San Salvador. It's being rebuilt again. Venice is always rebuilding something. Fires are common in a city made mostly of wood, and the Venetians respond by building bigger and better. San Salvador's new facade will be Renaissance style, clean lines, and classical proportions. Right now, it's hidden behind scaffolding and the sound of stonemasons at work. The streets are more organized here, actual paving stones instead of packed earth. Fewer dead ends. It's easier to navigate, which is good because you're exhausted and your arms are about to fall off. And then you turn a corner and see it. The Basilica de San Marco. Every time it takes your breath away, even though you've been to Venice a dozen times in the past 2 years. Even though you've walked past San Marco half those times, it still hits you like a physical force. The facade there's no word for it in Italian or any language you know. It's Byzantine opulence translated into stone and golden mosaic. 5 arches, each one topped with a dome. The central arch is taller than the others, creating a rhythm, small, medium, large, medium, small, that draws your eye upward. But it's the decoration that kills you. Every surface is covered. Mosaics glitter in the afternoon sun. Gold leaf backing colored glass, creating images of Christ, the apostles, the saints, scenes from the life of St. Mark. The mosaics cover over 8,000 meters of the basilica's surface. That's not an exaggeration. 8,000 square meters of gold and colored glass applied one tiny piece at a time over centuries. The 4 bronze horses stand above the central portal. They're ancient, looted from Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade in 1204, along with half the other treasures in the basilica. Venice doesn't apologize for its piracy. The horses are gorgeous, perfectly proportioned, their muscles rendered in bronze with such skill that they seem about to leap down from their pedestal. The basilica itself is relatively new as these things go. The current structure was begun in 1063, replacing an earlier church that burned down. It was consecrated in 1094. So, it's been here for, you do the math, 338 years. Your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents might have attended the dedication ceremony. The building sits low and spreading, like it's trying to hold the city down, like it knows Venice is unnatural, impossible, and only the weight of God's presence keeps it from floating away. You're not alone in staring. The Piazza San Marco is packed with people, and half of them are gawking at the basilica the way you are. Pilgrims from Germany and France and England. Merchants from as far away as Persia. Venetians who've seen it 1,000 times and still stop to look. The basilica is the spiritual heart of Venice. But more than that, it's a statement, a flex in the language of your time. It says, "We're Venice. We conquered Constantinople. We looted the East. We're rich beyond your comprehension, and we're not subtle about it. Inside the basilica, you've been inside once on a feast day. It's even more overwhelming. The floor is a geometric pattern of marble and fairy, slightly uneven because the building is settling into the mud. The walls are mosaics. The ceiling is mosaics. Gold everywhere. The Palladoro, the golden altarpiece, is encrusted with thousands of gems, sapphires, emeralds, rubies, amethysts. It's worth more than most kingdoms. The relics are housed here too. The body of St. Mark himself, stolen from Alexandria in 828 by Venetian merchants who hid it under a load of pork to get past the Muslim customs officials. The arm of St. George, a piece of the true cross, a thorn from Christ's crown. The Venetians collect relics the way they collect trade goods, aggressively. But you're not here for the basilica. You're here to deliver goblets. You tear your eyes away from the building and continue across the piazza. The piazza itself is enormous, roughly 560 feet long and 270 feet wide at its widest point. It's paved with brick in a herringbone pattern that's slightly elevated in the center for drainage. During aqua alter, the whole thing floods, but most of the time it's dry. The square is surrounded by porticos, covered walkways lined with shops and government buildings. The Procurativie on the north side, housing the offices of the procurators of St. Mark, the high officials who manage the basilica's vast wealth. On the south side, the newer buildings, less ornate but still grand, and at the eastern end, dominating everything, the Duke's Palace. The Palazzo Ducale is pink and white Verines marble, and Istrian stone arranged in a pattern that shouldn't work. Heavy upper floors resting on delicate Gothic arcades, but somehow does. The building is the seat of Venetian government. The Doge lives here. The Great Council meets here. The courts sit here. And beneath it, in the Pozzi, the dungeons wait. The palace is beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. You know what happens to people who cross the Republic. You've heard the stories. The Council of Ten doesn't need evidence to convict you. They don't need witnesses. If they decide you're a threat to Venice, to trade, to the social order, you disappear. There's a spot in the Pata between two of the columns near the waterfront where executions happen. They strangle you between the columns in full view of anyone passing by. The columns are topped with statues, St. Theodore and the Lion of St. Mark. The Venetians consider it unlucky to walk between them. You go around always. The Piazza is full of life. A group of German pilgrims is being led toward the basilica by a guide who's explaining in heavily accented German the history of the bronze horses. Street vendors sell everything: roasted chestnuts, holy medals, ribbons, cheap rosaries, fake relics, a piece of the true cross that's probably driftwood. A Mount Bangkank, a con artist, is performing sleight-of-hand tricks on an overturned barrel. A crowd gathered around him. His assistant, a boy of maybe 10, is working the crowd, lifting purses from anyone stupid enough to get too close. Musicians are playing near the basilica steps. Epipher, a type of esche, and a drum. The music is cheerful, almost absurdly so. Someone's dancing, stumbling slightly, probably drunk despite it being the middle of the day. Pigeons, thousands of them. They've been a fixture of the piazza for as long as anyone can remember. They strut around like they own the place, which, in a way, they do. Feeding the pigeons is considered good luck. Killing one is extremely bad luck, so they multiply unbothered on everything. You navigate through the crowd, careful not to jostle anyone, keeping the package safe. A priest in black robes sweeps past his face, disapproving of everything he sees. A pair of noble women in elaborate gowns and tall capines, platform shoes, mince along, their skirts held up to avoid the pigeon droppings. Their chapines are at least 18 inches tall, making them tower over everyone else. The height of your shop indicates your social status. These women are important, or at least they want you to think they are. A man in a long robe and turban, a merchant from the Ottoman Empire, is examining a display of Morirana glass in one of the arcade shops. He's speaking to the shopkeeper in accented Italian, negotiating. The shopkeeper is nodding, smiling, offering wine. The deal will happen eventually. Venice trades with everyone, even the infidels. Especially the infidels. They have money. You check the sun. It's past midday, maybe 1 o'clock. You need to deliver these goblets and get back to Morirano before dark. The lagoon gets dangerous after sunset. And the Trietto doesn't run at night. Senor Gamani's Palazzo is near here in the San Marco district. You head toward the back streets, away from the Pazza's chaos. The Grimani Palazzo is on a small canal called Rio de San Luca. It's not the grandest palace in Venice. That honor probably goes to Cadoro or one of the Doge's former residences, but it's impressive. 4 stories, Gothic windows, a water entrance where gondolas can dock directly. The facade is decorated with carved stonework, geometric patterns, floral motifs, the Grimani family crest. You can't quite make out the details from the street. You approach the land entrance, a wooden door big enough to drive a cart through. If carts existed in Venice, which they don't, there's a smaller door set into the larger one. You knock. A servant opens it. He's middle-aged, dressed in livery, the Grimani colors, which appear to be red and gold. His face is professionally neutral. Delivery from Maestro Vincenzo Dalmoro, you say. Glass for Signor Grimani's daughter's wedding. The servant's expression doesn't change, but he steps aside. Follow me. You enter. The palazzo's interior is cool and dim after the brightness of the street. The entrance hall, the androne, is paved with terrazzo, a Venetian invention. Marble chips set in cement and polished to a shine. A staircase rises to the upper floors. It's balustrade carved wood. Tapestries hang on the walls, probably Flemish. They're expensive. Everything here is expensive. The servant leads you through a doorway into a side room. This is the Portico, the main hall that runs the length of the building from the land entrance to the water entrance. It's enormous. Maybe 60 feet long and 20 wide. The ceiling is coffered wood painted with gold leaf and ultramarine blue. Windows on both ends, leaden light that reflects off the canal outside, creating a shimmering effect on the ceiling. Furniture is minimal, a few chests along the walls of some chairs. Venetian nobles don't fill their rooms with stuff the way Northern Europeans do. Space is luxury here. Emptiness is wealth. Wait, the servant says, and disappears through another door. You wait. You set the package down carefully, flexing your aching arms. Your shoulders are burning. You've been carrying that weight for nearly an hour, and you're not used to it. Glass blowing builds different muscles. Forearms, hands, core, not shoulders. You look around. The room is silent except for the faint sound of water lapping against the palazzo's foundation. Somewhere above you hear footsteps, voices muffled by distance. You've delivered orders before, but never to a palazzo this grand. Usually it's to shops, or to merchants' offices, or to the homes of wealthy but not noble customers. The Grimani are different. They're one of the old families, aristocrats. They've been in Venice since the founding, or close to it. They've held dog gip. They own property across the Republic. You're very aware that you're a 17-year-old apprentice from Padua, standing in a room worth more than your entire village. The servant returns. With him is a man you assume is Signor Grimani. He is maybe 50, graying hair, dressed in a long robe of dark red velvet. His face is sharp, intelligent. He looks at you the way you might look at a tool, assessing utility. Nothing more. The glass, he says. Not a question. Yes, senor. 24 goblets as ordered for your daughter's wedding. Let me see. You untie the cords, unwrap the oiled cloth, open the wooden frame. The goblets are packed in straw. You lift one out carefully. Hold it up to the light from the window. It's beautiful. Even you can see that. And you helped make it. The glass is perfectly clear. Cristallo, the Venetians call it, because it's as transparent as rock crystal. The bowl is wide and shallow. The stem is slender, twisted in a spiral. At the base, a small decoration, a Latino pattern, white glass threads embedded in the clear glass, creating a delicate web. Signor Grimani takes the goblet from your hands, examines it, holds it up to the light, turns it, checking for flaws. Acceptable, he says. Coming from a Grimani. That's high praise. He hands it back. Unpack the rest. My steward will inspect them. If they're all of this quality, my strenua will receive payment as agreed. Thank you, senor. The steward, a thin man with a ledger, enters. You unpack all 24 goblets, setting them on a table that the servant brings over. The steward examines each one, makes notes, counts them twice. 24. He confirms. No visible defects. The payment will be delivered to Murano tomorrow. And that's it. Transaction complete. You repack the frame. Empty now, and the servant leads you back to the door. You're outside again, blinking in the afternoon sun. The whole thing took maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes to deliver glass that took 2 weeks to make. Glass that will be used once at a wedding you'll never attend by people who'll never think about the apprentice who helped create it. That's the craft. Anonymous, beautiful, ephemeral in its importance. You head back toward the Fondmenta Nuove, toward the Trato, toward Moreno. You're halfway back to the waterfront when you realize you have time. The Teto runs until sundown. It's only mid-afternoon. Maestro isn't expecting you back until evening. You could go straight back. Be responsible. Get a few more hours of work done before dark. Or you could see something. Do something. You're 17 years old and you've spent the last 2 years in a workshop breathing glass, dust, and furnace smoke. When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to? You make a decision. You're going to climb the Campanile, the bell tower of San Marco. The Campanile is the tallest structure in Venice, 323 feet high, topped with a golden angel that supposedly turns with the wind. You can see it from anywhere in the city. And supposedly from the top, you can see all of Venice, all of the lagoon, even the Alps on a clear day. You've never been up there. Apprentices don't have time for sightseeing, but today you're making time. The entrance to the company is in the Piazza. There's a guard, a boar-looking man in Republic livery, who's supposed to check who goes up. In practice, he waves through anyone who's not obviously a criminal. You pay the fee to Soldi and enter. The interior is dim. The walls are brick, over 3 meters thick at the base to support the weight above. There's a ramp, not stairs. The ramp spirals upward, gently sloped because they used to ride horses up here. Seriously, the tower was originally watchtower, and you needed to be able to get guards and equipment to the top quickly. You start climbing. The ramp curves upward in a slow spiral. The brick walls are cool to the touch, damp with condensation. Small windows appear every 20 feet or so, narrow slits designed for arches back when the tower served a defensive purpose. Light streams through in sharp geometric shafts, illuminating the dust motes that hang in the still air. Your legs start burning after the first few minutes. The slope is gentle but relentless. You pass another climber coming down, a merchant judging by his clothes. Red-faced and breathing hard, he nods at you without speaking, saving his breath for the descent. The silence is strange. Outside, Venice is chaos. Inside the tower, there's only the sound of your footsteps on stone and the distant muffled noise of the city filtering through the arrow slits. And as you climb higher, another sound emerges, the bells. The company houses 5 bells, each with its own name and purpose. The Marangona, which you heard this morning, calls the workers to their trades. The Trottiere announces meetings of the Great Council. The Nonner marks the 9th hour. The Mezza rings at mid-morning. And the Maleficio, the malefactor, announces executions. The bells are somewhere above you in the belfry. You can feel their presence even when they're silent. The tower itself seems to vibrate with stored sound, centuries of ringing compressed into the stones. You keep climbing. The windows grow brighter as you ascend. Less shadow from the surrounding buildings. Through one slit, you catch a glimpse of red tile roofs stretching away toward the Rialto. Through another, the lagoon, its surface rippled by wind. Your calves are screaming now. The empty wooden frame is strapped to your back, and even empty it's awkward. The corners digging into your shoulders, but you're committed. You've come too far to turn back. The ramp opens into the belfry level. The space is vast, maybe 40 feet square, open on all four sides with arched openings protected by wooden louvers. The bells hang in their framework overhead, massive bronze shapes that look like they're sleeping. The largest, the Marangona, is easily 8 feet tall. Its surface is greenish with patina, covered in Latin inscriptions you can't quite read from this angle. But you're not here for the bells. There's another ladder, wooden, steep, leading up through a hatch to the outdoor gallery. You climb it, and then you're outside. The wind hits you first. It's strong up here, whipping across the open platform, carrying the salt smell of the lagoon and something else. Distance, space, the scent of being above instead of among. The golden angel is directly overhead, mounted on a spindle that allows it to rotate. Right now, it's facing northeast toward Moreno. You walk to the edge of the platform. The balustrade is waist-high, solid stone. You grip it and look out. Venice spreads below you like a living map. And when I say spreads, I need you to understand what that means. From 323 feet up in 1432, this isn't a view you can get from a helicopter or a drone or an airplane window. This is the highest point most people in medieval Europe will ever stand. This is as close to a God's eye view as human beings can achieve. The city is a maze of red tile roofs, punctuated by church towers and the pale stone of palazzi. The Grand Canal snakes through the center, a reversed shape filled with boats, gondolas, barges, merchant vessels, fishing boats. You can see the Rialto Bridge from here, a dark line across the water. Beyond it, more roofs, more canals, more churches. To your left, south, the island of Giudecca, separated from the main city by the wide Giudecca Canal. You can see the monastery there, its walls and gardens. Beyond Giudecca, the open lagoon stretches toward the barrier islands, the ley, that separate Venice from the Adriatic Sea proper. To your right, north, Moreno. You can see the smoke rising from the glass furnaces, dozens of thin gray columns. Beyond Morirano, more islands. Murano with its lace makers, Torcello with its ancient cathedral, San Michele, where the dead are buried. Straight ahead, east, the lagoon opens up, dotted with islands and sandbanks and the wooden posts, bowl that mark the navigable channels. The water is brown-green close to shore, shifting to gray-blue farther out. And beyond all of that, just visible on the horizon, the main land. The Alps are hidden in haze today, but you know they're there. On winter mornings when the air is clear, you can supposedly see their snow-covered peaks from up here. Behind you west, the city extends toward the mainland, toward Mestre and Padua and the Tererma. The territory Venice controls on solid ground. The causeway that will one day connect Venice to the mainland doesn't exist yet in 1432. The only way on or off the islands is by boat. You stand there, gripping the balustrade, letting the wind push against you. A group of German pilgrims emerges from the hatch, exclaiming in their language. They crowd the railing, pointing at landmarks, arguing about which church is which. You move to give them space and find a quieter corner of the platform. From here, you can see the Doge's palace directly below its pink and white pattern, like a checkerboard. The piazza spreads out beside it, still crowded with people who, from this height, look like insects. You can see the Pata, the waterfront, the two columns. Between the columns, where executions happen, someone has set up a market stall. Life goes on right next to death. Your eyes trace the canals. You're learning to read the city from above, matching what you see to the paths you've walked. There's the Rio Santa Catarina, where the gondolers were fighting. There's Campo San Baldo with its well. There's the route you took this morning, reduced to a line through the urban fabric. Venice is bigger than you thought and smaller. Bigger because from up here, you can see how it extends island after island, each one connected by bridges. The whole thing held together by habit and ambition and sheer Venetian stubbornness. Smaller because you can see its limits. The lagoon surrounds everything. The city is constrained, finite, impossibly dense. You think about the people down there. 50,000, 100,000, nobody knows for sure. Each one living their own life, dealing with their own struggles. The glass blower on Morirano, the merchant at the Rialto, the noble in his palazzo, the prostitute in her room above a tavern, the priest in his church, the beggar on the street corner, all of them part of the same impossible city, and the plague ship out in the lagoon. You can see it from here, a dark shape against the water, the yellow quarantine flag, a tiny rectangle of color, the ship that might be carrying death or might be harmless. Nobody knows until the 40 days are up. Venice lives on the edge constantly between wealth and poverty, between glory and disaster, between the solid earth and the consuming sea. The city exists because the Venetians refuse to accept that it shouldn't. That could be inspiring or terrifying depending on how you look at it. A bell rings somewhere below one of the smaller churches. Then another answers. Then the Marangona directly beneath your feet begins to toll. The sound is enormous physical. It doesn't just enter your ears. It enters your whole body, vibrating in your chest and bones. You feel like you might shatter. The Germans are shouting to each other, trying to be heard over the bells. One of them is praying, hands clasped, face turned toward the sky. Maybe he thinks being this close to heaven makes his prayers more likely to be heard. Maybe he's right. You don't know how prayer works. The priests say God hears everything. Your grandmother used to say he hears, but he doesn't always listen. The difference being that hearing is passive, but listening requires attention, and God's attention is the rarest commodity in the universe. You look down at your hands. They're stained with ash and silica dust, the fingertips calloused from handling hot glass and rough tools. These hands have made things, beautiful things, useless things, goblets for rich men's daughters to drink wine from at weddings. But still, things didn't exist until you made them exist. That has to account for something. The bells stop. The silence afterward feels enormous. You take one more look at the city, trying to memorize it to carry this view back down with you into the maze of streets, and then you head for the ladder. The walk down is faster than the climb up, but harder on the knees. By the time you reach the bottom, your legs are shaking. You exit into the piazza, blinking in the afternoon sunlight. The world feels smaller now, more confined, like you've been given a glimpse of the larger pattern, and now you're back in the details. You need to get to the fondament. The Treddo won't wait, and the lagoon gets dangerous after dark. Not just dangerous, deadly. The channels are tricky even in daylight, at night without lights. Boats run aground on sandbanks. Passengers fall overboard and drown in 3 feet of water because they can't see which way is up in the darkness. You navigate back through the streets, moving faster now. The package frame bounces on your back, empty, weightless. The streets are still crowded, but the crowd has a different character. It's later in the day. The market sellers are starting to pack up. The prostitutes are more visible, leaning in doorways, calling to passers-by. The taverns are filling up with workers finishing their shifts. You pass a group of arsenalodi, The arsenal workers still in their leather aprons, covered in tar and wood shavings. They're loud, laughing, drunk already, despite it being only mid-afternoon. The Arsenal is Venice's shipyard, one of the largest industrial complexes in medieval Europe. They can build a complete war galley in a single day if needed. The workers are skilled, well-paid, and know it. They have a reputation for being rowdy. You give them a wide berth. A different route this time. You cut through the Castello district heading northeast. This is a working-class neighborhood. Sailors, rope makers, sail makers, all the trades that support Venice's navy and merchant fleet. The buildings are plainer here, less marble, more brick. The streets narrower, the smells stronger. You pass a squario, a gondola workshop. The boat builder is outside planing a length of walnut that will become part of a gondola's hull. The shavings curl away from his tool in long spirals. He works with the kind of focus you recognize from the glass workshop. Complete attention, the material demanding respect. Every Venetian gondolola is asymmetric. The left side is longer than the right to compensate for the oarsman standing on the right and rowing with a single oar. Building one requires 8 different types of wood: oak for the keel, elm for the sides, mahogany for trim, walnut for interior, cherry, larch, lime, and fir for various structural elements. Each gondolola is customized to fit its owner's height and weight and rowing style. The squarey gondolola builders are artists in their own right. Venice is a city of specialists. Everyone masters something. You're learning glass. Others learn wood or metal or stone or cloth or any of 1,000 other crafts. The city runs on expertise accumulated over generations, passed down master to apprentice, in workshops exactly like Maestro Vincenzo's. You're thinking about this, about specialization, about craft, about the strange economy of a city that produces almost no food, but produces luxury goods that the whole world wants when you nearly walk into the canal. Literally, the street dead ends at water, with no warning, no wool, no fence, just pavement, and then suddenly water. You stop yourself at the last second. Toes at the edge. This is how people die in Venice. You're walking, distracted, thinking about something else, and suddenly you're in the canal. And canals are deeper than they look, especially near buildings where the foundations go down 10 or 15 feet. And the water is cold, and your clothes get heavy, and the walls are slippery with algae, and there's nobody around to pull you out. They find bodies in the canals regularly, drunks mostly, but also children who fell in while playing, old people who misstep, and sometimes, though nobody talks about this, people who are helped into the water. Venice has efficient ways of disposing of inconvenient people. You step back from the edge, heart hammering. Pay attention. This city will kill you if you're careless. You find a bridge, a small wooden arch, and cross to the other side. The bridges in Venice number in the hundreds. Some are grand stone structures. Most are like this. Wooden planks across the narrower canals with railings if you're lucky. They have names, but you don't know most of them. You navigate by landmarks, not street names. The fondment is close now. You can smell it. The open lagoon, saltier and cleaner than the enclosed canals. The wind picks up blowing from the northeast. You reach the waterfront just as a Treto is preparing to depart. Perfect timing. You pay your 2 solgen board. The trighetto is less crowded than this morning. Just you, a priest reading his bray, and a woman with a basket of something covered with cloth. The oarsmen push off without ceremony. The boat glides out into the lagoon. The sun is lower now, somewhere behind you. The light has that golden quality the painters try to capture and never quite manage. Everything looks softer. The water is calm, rippling gently. A fishing boat passes, heading in toward Venice. its nets hanging from the sides. The fishermen wave. You wave back. Moreno appears ahead, low and sprawling. You can see the furnace smoke clearly now, gray columns rising into the pale sky. From here, the island looks peaceful, almost idyllic. You know better. Those furnaces run at temperatures that can melt your skin off if you get too close. The workshops are dangerous. Boys die there. Not often, but regularly enough that everyone knows the risks. Paulo died there. Your mind goes to him before you can stop it. Paulo was an apprentice like you, older, 19. And better at the craft than you'll probably ever be. He'd been at Maestro Vincenzo's workshop for 5 years. He was months away from becoming a journeyman. Everyone said he had a gift for it. He could shape glass like he was born holding a Pinello. And then one morning, 3 months ago, he was gathering molten glass from the crucible, and something happened. Maybe he slipped. Maybe a tool broke. Maybe he just had a moment of bad luck. The molten glass, 1,500 degrees, spilled onto his arm and chest. He screamed. You remember that? You were across the workshop working on something else, and you heard him scream, and you turned and saw him covered in liquid fire. Maestro threw a bucket of water on him. Wrong thing to do. Water makes molten glass explode into fragments. But what else could he do? They got the glass off him, but the damage was done. His arm was ruined. His chest was burned so badly you could see bone. He lived for 2 days, screaming most of that time when he was conscious. The doctors came and gave him opium, but there's only so much opium can do for burns that's severe. You were there when he died. All the apprentices were. Maestro made you watch. This is the craft, he said. This is what happens when you're careless. Remember him. You do remember him. Every time you gather glass, you see Paulo's face. Every time you hear someone scream, even just kids playing in the street, you're back in that moment watching your friend die. Glass blowing is beautiful. It's also unforgiving. The woman in the Trieto has uncovered a basket. Inside are eels, still alive, writhing over each other. She's taking them to market on Moreno. Presumably, eels are popular in Venice. They're one of the few fish that stay alive out of water long enough to be transported fresh. They taste like mud and rubber in your opinion, but the Venetians love them. One eel works its way to the top of the pile and makes a bid for freedom, slithering toward the edge of the basket. The woman catches it and stuffs it back in without even looking. Practice motion. She's done this 1,000 times. The priest finishes whatever prayer he's saying, closes his breviary, and looks up at you. His face is young, younger than you expected from the gray in his hair. Maybe 30. First time crossing today. He asks. Second. Went to Venice this morning for a delivery. What trade? Glass. I'm an apprentice at Maestro Vincenzo Dal Moro's workshop. The priest nods. Good workshop. My church bought altar candles from him last year. Beautiful pieces. The glass was so clear you could see the flame inside. Those would have been Giovanni's work. He specializes in candles. Give him my compliments. Tell him Father Marco from St. Pietro Martia was impressed. I will, Father. The priest laps his back into silence, watching the water. You do the same. The plague ship is still anchored in the lagoon, exactly where it was this morning. You wonder if anyone on board is still alive. Probably if they'd all died, the ship would be drifting by now, or the authorities would have towed it farther out to burn it. The fact that it's still anchored in place means someone's maintaining it. Someone's still fighting. Do you ever wonder, the priest says suddenly, why God allows the plague? You look at him surprised. That's a dangerous question. In 1432, the church's official position is that plague is punishment for sin. Questioning it could be interpreted as questioning divine justice. I don't know, Father. Neither do I. He smiles, but it's a sad smile. I've given last rites to over 200 plague victims in the past 5 years. Men, women, children. Some of them were sinners, certainly, but some were good people, truly good. And they suffered the same as the wicked, died the same terrible deaths. He's quiet for a moment. Then I think maybe God doesn't send the plague. Maybe it's just something that happens like storms or earthquakes, part of the world being broken, and we endure it the way we endure everything else, with faith, with hope, with whatever strength we can find. You don't know what to say to that. It sounds almost heretical, but also somehow more comforting than the official explanation. Do you think they'll survive? You nod toward the plague ship, the crew. Some might. 40 days is a long time. If they've made it this far, they have a chance. He pauses. I pray for them every morning. It's all I can do. The Trieto bumps against the Mororano dock. The Osman tie up. You disembark, thank the priest, and head toward the workshop. The workshop is still operating. When you arrive, you can hear the furnace roaring, see the glow through the windows. The other apprentices are inside working. You've been gone all day, but the work doesn't stop just because you're not there. Maestro Vincenzo is at his bench shaping something delicate. Looks like a small vase. He doesn't look up when you enter, but he speaks. The delivery went well. Yes. Maestro, Senor Grimani's steward inspected all 24 pieces. He said payment would arrive tomorrow. Good. Still not looking up. His hands moved with a barrel, pinching the glass just so, creating a fluted rim. And you didn't break anything. Didn't fall in the canal. Didn't get robbed. No, Maestro. Surprising. You're usually clumsier. This is praise in Maestro Vincenzo's language. You recognize it as such. Thank you, Maestro. He sets down the vase carefully, finally looks at you. His eyes are sharp, assessing. You took the long way back. It's not a question. You don't know how he knows. Maybe he just knows everything that happens in his workshop and to his apprentices. But lying would be stupid. Yes, Maestro. I climb the cample. You expect anger. Expect a lecture about wasting time, about being irresponsible, about how you're here to learn a craft, not to sightsee like a tourist. Instead, Maestro just nods. What did you see? Everything. All of Venice, the lagoon, the islands. Good. A craftsman should understand the world his work goes into. Glass doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of something larger. He turns back to his work. Now get your apron on. We're behind on the order for the dojo's banquet. You're doing stems until dark. You're already moving toward the pegs where the aprons hang. What's the occasion? The Sposalio dell'air, the marriage to the sea. It's in 3 days. The Doge ordered 60 goblets for the banquet afterward. We finished 40. You and Giovanni are doing the last 20 tonight. The Sposalitio dell'are. You've heard of it. Everyone in Venice has, but you've never seen it. It's one of the Republic's most important ceremonies. Every year on Ascension Day, the Doge boards the Bintoro, the state barge, and sails out into the Adriatic. At the mouth of the lagoon, he throws a golden ring into the water, symbolically marrying Venice to the sea. We espouse thee, O sea, in sign of perpetual dominion. That's what he says, asserting Venice's control over the Adriatic, claiming the sea itself as Venetian property. It's propaganda, obviously, but it's effective propaganda. The ceremony has been happening for over 400 years. Every Doge since Pro-IO in 1000 AD has done it. It's tradition, it's identity, it's Venice distilled into ritual. Will we see it? You ask the ceremony. Maestro snorts. We're glass blowers, not nobles. We'll see it the way common people see it, from the waterfront, from a distance. Maybe if we're not too busy working. He pauses. Though I suppose if we finished the dues order tonight, I could give you the morning off. Could. That's as close to a promise as you'll get. You tie on your apron and get to work. Giovanni is already at the main bench working through the stems. He's fast. Faster than you. But even he can't do 20 stems in a single evening alone. You set up at the auxiliary bench, gather your tools, and begin. The work settles into rhythm. Gather, blow, shape, reheat, shape again, transfer to the temper. Repeat. The workshop at night is different from the workshop during the day. Quieter, more focused. The only sounds are the furnace roar, the clink of tools, the occasional grunt of effort. The light comes from the furnace and from oil lamps hung on the walls. It creates harsh shadows, makes everything look dramatic, like you're in a painting by one of those Flemish masters who loves chiaroscuro. Luca is tending the furnace, feeding in beechwood logs at regular intervals. The temperature has to stay constant, too hot, and the glass becomes too fluid, impossible to control, too cool, and it stiffens too quickly. The furnace is the heart of the workshop. Everything depends on it. The other apprentices, Marco and Stefano and young Nicolou, who's only 14, are doing prep work, mixing batches for tomorrow, cleaning tools, organizing the colored canner. The work never stops. Even when you're not actively making something, there's always something to do. Your first stem comes out perfect. Clear glass, thin and even with a slight twist to catch the light. You carry it to the temper, feeling a small surge of pride. That's one. 19 to go. The second stem cracks. You feel it happen. A tiny shift in the temperature, the glass cooling too fast in one spot. The stress building until something gives way. It's still on the pontello when it fractures. You swear under your breath. Snap it off. Toss it in the Calais bin. Maestro doesn't comment. Breakage is expected. You're an apprentice. You're still learning. As long as your success rate is above 50%, you're doing acceptably. The third, fourth, and fifth stems are good. The sixth is acceptable. Slightly thick in one spot, but not enough to reject it. The seventh is perfect again. You fall into the zone. That state where your hands know what to do without your brain having to direct them, where the glass speaks to you through the tools, telling you when to push and when to pull, when to add heat and when to let it cool. This is why you do this work, not for the money. You make almost nothing, not for the prestige. You're an apprentice, nobody important, but for these moments when you and the material are in conversation, when you're making something beautiful out of sand and fire and nothing else. The church bells ring complain. The final prayer service of the day. That means it's around 8 or 9. 00. You've been working for 3 hours. Your back aches. Your eyes are dry from the heat. Your hands are starting to cramp, but you've made 12 stems. 12 good ones. 8 more to go. Giovanni has made 8. He's faster when he's fresh, but he tires quicker. He's been here all day while you were in Venice. You can see the fatigue in his movements. He's still good, better than you on his worst day, but he's slowing down. Switch to bowls, Maestro says to him. I'll finish the stems. Giovanni doesn't argue. He moves to a different bench and starts working on goblet bowls, the wide, shallow cups that will be attached to the stems tomorrow. That's easier work, less precision required. Maestro takes Giovanni's place at the main bench. You keep working at the auxiliary bench, master and apprentice working side by side. This is rare. Maestro usually supervises, directs, corrects. He doesn't usually work alongside the apprentices except when demonstrating technique. But tonight, with the dues order deadline looming, he's pitching in. You watch him when you can, stealing glances between your own work. His movements are economical. No wasted motion. Every gesture serves a purpose. He gathers glass, blows once, just once, getting the bubble exactly right, shapes it with a touch so light it barely seems like contact, and produces a stem that's flawless. Perfect symmetry, perfect thickness, perfect proportion. That's 50 years of experience. That's what you're aiming for someday. If you survive long enough, if you get good enough, if you're lucky enough, you finish your 13th stem. 14:15. Maestro finishes his first, second, third in the time it takes you to do one. Together, you complete the order just before midnight, 20 stems. All acceptable or better. Giovanni has finished 12 bowls. The rest can be done tomorrow. The Ido's banquet isn't until after the Sposalizio ceremony, which gives them 2 more days. Good, Maestro says, examining the last stem. Very good. Clean up and get some sleep. Tomorrow we attach these, do the final polishing, pack them for delivery. The workshop empties out. The apprentices head upstairs to the dormitory. Luca banks the furnace for the night. It never goes completely cold. That would ruin it, but it can burn lower overnight. Maestro locks the storeroom where the valuable materials are kept. The colorants, the gold leaf, the finished pieces waiting for delivery. You wash your hands and face at the courtyard. Well, the water is cold, shocking after hours near the furnace. It feels good. You scrub the ash and silica dust from your skin, knowing it'll be back tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day. For as long as you do this work, upstairs the dormitory is dark. Luca is already asleep, snoring softly. The other apprentices are settling in. You strip off your outer clothes, lie down on the straw mattress in your shirt, and braze. The straw rustles beneath you. The room is warm from the furnace heat rising through the floor. You're exhausted. Your body aches in a dozen places. Your hands smell like smoke no matter how much you wash them. Tomorrow will be more of the same. And the day after that. But you climb the Campanile today. You saw Venice from above. You delivered 24 goblets to a palazzo, and nobody died, and nothing broke. You made 12 perfect stems, and only broke one. That's a good day by the standards of an apprentice glass blower in 1432. You close your eyes. The sounds of Morirano filter through the window. The lap of water against the fondamenta. A distant dog barking. The creak of a boat being tied up for the night. The eternal whisper of the lagoon. Sleep comes quickly. The morning of the Sposalizio del Mar dawns clear and bright. Maestro, true to his implied promise, gives you the morning off after you finish the dues goblets. The whole workshop gets the morning off. Actually, it's a feast day. Even glass furnaces rest on major feast days. You eat a quick breakfast, bread, cheese, watered wine, and head to Venice with the other apprentices. The whole city will be at the waterfront for the ceremony. This is the event of the year. Missing it would be like you can't even imagine missing it. The Trietto is packed. Everyone on Morirano is crossing to Venice. You're wedged between a glassmaker from a rival workshop and a woman carrying a small child. The child is crying. The mother is singing to it. Some Venetian lobby you half recognize. The lagoon is full of boats. Everyone's heading to the same place. The Bino, the basin of San Marco, where the ceremony will begin. Gondolas, barges, fishing boats, merchant vessels. Everything that floats is on the water today. You disembark at the Fondamenta Nuove and join the river of people flowing toward San Marco. The streets are even more crowded than usual. Festive people are dressed in their best clothes. Musicians are playing on corners. Vendors are selling free-to and roasted nuts and ribbons in red and gold, Venice's colors. You reach the waterfront just as the bells begin to ring. All of them, every church in Venice, all at once. The sound is overwhelming. It echoes off the water, off the buildings, creating layers of noise that vibrate in your chest. And then you see it. The Bucentoro, the state barge of the Doge, there's no word adequate to describe it. It's huge, maybe 100 feet long, powered by 40 oars on each side. The hull is carved and gilded, every surface covered with decorations. Sculptures of angels and saints and sea monsters. The canopy of midshipips is red velvet embroidered with gold thread. The whole thing gleams in the morning sun like it's made of solid gold instead of wood and gilt. The Doge is aboard. You can't see him clearly from the waterfront. You're too far away, but you can see his ceremonial robes, red and gold, and the corn ducal, the strange horn-shaped hat that only the Doge wears. Around the Bintoro, hundreds of smaller boats. Every noble family has sent a gondola. Every guild has sent representatives. The whole republic is here, floating on the lagoon. The Bizenro begins to move. At oars dip into the water in perfect synchronization. The barge glides forward with surprising grace for something so massive. The crowd on the waterfront cheers. Bells keep ringing. Someone near you is crying. Tears of patriotic pride. You assume you're swept up in it despite yourself. You're not Venetian. You're from Padua. Technically a Venetian subject, but not a citizen of the Republic itself. But standing here watching this, you feel it. The pull. The sense of being part of something larger than yourself. Something ancient and powerful and utterly convinced of its own importance. Venice doesn't just think it's special. It knows it is. And when you see the Bucentoro sailing toward the sea, followed by a flotilla of boats, the whole lagoon filled with vessels, and the whole city watching from the shore, it's hard to argue. The procession takes an hour. The Bucentoro makes its way through the lagoon, past the islands, toward the Lay, the barrier islands, and the open Adriatic beyond. You can't see what happens next. You're too far away, but you know the ritual. At the mouth of the lagoon, at the Porto Dilo, the Doge will stand at the prow of the Bucentoro and throw a golden ring into the sea. We dispose the OC in sign of perpetual dominion. The ring sinks. The marriage is sealed for another year. Venice claims the Adriatic as its own, its theater. Obviously, the sea doesn't care about rings or ceremonies or claims of dominion, but theater works. Ritual works. You're standing on the waterfront of an impossible city, a city built on mud and wood pilings that somehow became the richest trading power in the Mediterranean. How did that happen? Not just through commerce and naval power, through belief, through the absolute conviction that Venice is chosen, special, destined to endure. The Bucentoro returns. The crowd cheers again. Bells ring again. The Doge disembarks at the Pata. He'll proceed to San Marco for a special mass. Then the banquet, where he'll drink from goblets made in Maestro Vincenza's workshop, though the Doge will never know or care who made them. You stand there a while longer, watching the boats disperse. The crowd begin to break up. Giovanni is next to you, also watching. He doesn't say anything, doesn't need to. You're both thinking the same thing. This is Venice, this impossible, glorious, dangerous, filthy, beautiful city. And you're part of it now, whether you meant to be or not. The next day, the city is quieter. The ceremonial energy has drained away, leaving Venice in its normal state of controlled chaos. You're back in the workshop by dawn as always. The Mangona rings. The furnace roars. The rhythm reasserts itself. Maestro sends Giovanni to the dojo's palace in the afternoon to collect payment for the 60 goblets. He returns with a leather purse heavy with coins and a strange expression on his face. What you ask when Maestro has taken the purse to his office to count it? I saw the banquet hall, Giovanni says. They let me walk through on the way to the steward's office. The tables were still set from last night, 60 goblets all lined up. Our work, and they looked. He struggles for words. Small, insignificant, like they were just objects, things to drink from. I thought seeing them in the Dew's Palace would feel different, important, but they were just glasses on a table. You understand what he's saying. The disconnect between the craft, the hours of work, the skill, the artistry, and the use. The goblets you spent weeks making were used once for a single banquet. And now they'll be packed away in some palace storeroom until the next state occasion. Or maybe they'll be given as gifts to visiting dignitaries. Or maybe one of them will break when a servant drops it, and months of work will shatter in a second. That's the craft. You make beautiful things. Other people use them or destroy them or forget about them. Your name never appears anywhere. You're invisible. Did they pay well, at least? You ask. Shivani grins. Very well. Maestro's in a good mood. He might actually give us a bonus. Maestro does give a bonus. Not much. A few soldi apprentice, but enough to buy a decent meal at a tavern or save toward whatever future you're saving for. You're not entirely sure what that is yet. The weeks after the sposalizio blur together. Spring becomes summer. The heat intensifies. The workshop becomes almost unbearable during the day. The furnace that was tolerable in April is hellish in June. You work stripped to the waist, sweat pouring off you, drinking water constantly, and still feeling perpetually dehydrated. The city smells worse in summer. The canals are always foul, become truly nauseating. The heat breeds pestilence. Not the plague. Not this year, thank God. But fevers. Flux. The sweating sickness. People die. Not in huge numbers, but steadily. Venice's population is always in flux. People arrive seeking fortune. People die. People are born. The city churns. You learn more of the craft. Maestro starts teaching you advanced techniques. How to work with gold leaf. Applying it to glass while it's still hot so it fuses into the surface. How to create Miller Fury 1000 flowers by bundling colored glass rods together, heating them until they fuse, then slicing the bundle to reveal intricate patterns. How to blow glass thin enough to be nearly invisible, so delicate that a strong breath could shatter it. You're getting good. You can feel it in your hands, in the way the glass responds to you. You're not at Giovanni's level yet. Not close, but you're no longer a complete novice. You're becoming competent. The summer brings more orders. Wealthy Venetians commission pieces for their palazzi. Foreign merchants order sets to take back to Paris, to London, to Prague. The workshop runs at full capacity. Some nights you work until midnight, sometimes later. Maestro drives you hard, but he drives himself harder. He's in the workshop before you arrive and still there after you collapse into bed. One particularly brutal July day when the temperature in the workshop must be over 110 degrees and you feel like you're going to pass out from the heat. Maestro calls a break. Outside, he says, "All of you. In 10 minutes, cool off or you'll be useless." "It's beautiful," she says softly. "The blue threads." How do you do that? You explain the technique as simply as you can, how the colored glass is applied, how the temperature has to be exact, how one mistake ruins everything. She listens, actually interested. "You made this yourself?" "Yes, Madonna." "How old are you?" 17. "Madonna." 17. She shakes her head. "When I was 17, I could barely embroider a straight line. And you can make this." She gestures at the vase. You don't know what to say. The gulf between your lives is so vast that conversation feels absurd. She's nobility. You're an apprentice. She'll marry into another wealthy family, spend her life managing a household and bearing children and attending social functions. You'll spend your life in a workshop breathing smoke and shaping glass. But for this moment, you're connected by this object, this beautiful, fragile, ultimately unnecessary thing that somehow matters anyway. "Thank you," she says. "Tell your master that the work is exquisite. The payment will be delivered as arranged." You're dismissed. The servant leads you back out. You exit into the Venetian afternoon, blinking in the sunlight. You have time before the Tetto back to Morarano. And suddenly, overwhelmingly, you want to see the city from above again. Want to see Venice the way you saw a year ago when everything was newer and stranger, and you were just starting to understand what this place was. You walk to San Marco. Pay your 2 soldi climb the Campanile spiral ramp. The climb is easier this time. Your legs are stronger. Your lungs are better. 3 years of workshop labor have built your body in ways you didn't notice day to day. The view from the top is the same and completely different. The same buildings, the same canals, the same lagoon. But you see it differently now. You know the city in a way you didn't a year ago. You can trace the routes you walk regularly. The workshop on Morarano, the routes to various palati, the churches, the markets. You can see the Plague Islands. From up here, they look peaceful, just small patches of land in the lagoon. You can't see the mass graves, the bodies, the horror. Distance makes everything beautiful. The plague ship from last year is gone, but there's another one now anchored in the same spot. The yellow quarantine flag barely visible from this height. Another ship, another 40 days, another roll of the dice to see if disease comes to shore. Venice endures it all. The plague, the politics, the constant threat of war with Genoa or Milan or the Ottomans, the impossible logistics of a city built on water. It endures because it has to. Because giving up would mean admitting that this whole experiment, building a major power on unstable mud in the middle of a lagoon, was a mistake. And Venetians don't admit mistakes. You think about your life here. 3 years. In that time, you've learned a craft, made friends, watched someone die, survived a plague outbreak, created things with your own hands, delivered those things to people who will use them or forget them or break them. It's not the life you imagined when you left Padua. You thought glass making would be, you don't know, more glamorous, more important. You thought making beautiful things would feel different, but it turns out making beautiful things is mostly just hard work. And sometimes the things you make matter to someone, and sometimes they don't. And either way, you get up the next morning and make more things because that's the craft. A bell begins to ring below, then another, then all of them. The 5 bells of the campanile joining the dozens of church bells across the city. You can't tell what hour it is. The bells mark different times for different purposes, but it sounds like vespers, evening prayer. The sun is lower now. The light is golden. Venice glows. You take one last look. Try to memorize it, not the details. You'll forget those, but the feeling, the sense of being above it all, seeing the pattern instead of just the pieces. Then you descend. The Tetto back to Morarano is quiet. Just you and an old woman with a basket of eggs. The O's men row steadily, their oars creating small whirlpools in the dark water. The workshop is closed when you arrive. Maestro must have given everyone the evening off. The furnace is banked, but not cold. You can see the glow through the windows. You enter through the side door. Maestro is inside alone, working at his bench. He's making something small. He can't see what. He glances up. The delivery went well. Yes, Maestro. The lady was pleased. She said the work was exquisite. Good. He returns his attention to whatever he's making. You move closer to see. It's a small glass bird, a sparrow maybe, or a finch. He's working it with tools so delicate they're barely larger than needles, adding tiny details, individual feathers, the curve of the beak, eyes like glass seeds. You watch in silence. This isn't for a commission. This isn't for money. Maestro is making this for himself, for the craft, because after 40 years he still wants to see what glass can do. He finishes, holds up the bird. It's perfect, delicate, and precise, and absolutely unnecessary. Beautiful for no reason except that it can be. Why do we make beautiful things, Matteo? He asked suddenly. You're caught off guard. I don't know, Maestro. Neither do I, really. He sets the bird down carefully. The goblets serve a purpose. The vases, the windows for churches, those have functions. But this, he gestures at the bird. This serves no purpose. It's just glass shaped like a bird, and yet I spent 2 hours making it. Why? You don't answer. It feels like a rhetorical question, because Maestro continues. Quote 4. He picks up the bird again, turns it in the lamplight. This bird will never fly. It will never sing. It will sit on a shelf somewhere and collect dust. In 100 years, it might break and be thrown away. But right now, in this moment, it exists, and it's beautiful. And I made it. That matters. Maybe not to the world, maybe not to God, but it matters to me. He hands you the bird. Keep it. Remember this conversation. Remember that the craft isn't just about making money or pleasing clients or surviving. It's about making beauty, even when there's no reason to, especially when there's no reason to. You hold the bird carefully. It weighs almost nothing. Thank you, Maestro. Don't thank me. Just remember, now go eat something and get some sleep. Tomorrow we start on 40 beers for that physician in Padua, and I want them done by Friday. Always back to work. The dormitory is empty when you arrive. The other apprentices are still out somewhere. Tavern, probably. You're glad for the solitude. You set the glass bird on the small shelf beside your bed. In the dim light from the window, it almost looks alive. You lie down. The familiar sounds of Morarano filter through the walls. Water lapping, distant voices, a dog barking, the eternal whisper of the lagoon. Tomorrow, there will be 40 beers. And after that, 40 more of something else. And after that, more. The work never ends. The furnace never fully cools. The craft continues generation after generation, master to apprentice, shaping beauty out of sand and fire and human will. You're part of that now, part of something that started before you were born and will continue after you're dead. Your name might not be remembered, the things you make might not survive, but the craft itself that endures. Venice endures. The lagoon endures. The glass endures until it doesn't, and then someone makes more glass. You close your eyes. Your breathing slows. The sounds of Morarano grow fainter. Or maybe you're just listening less. The boundary between waking and sleeping starts to blur the way it does when you're truly exhausted. When your body has decided that consciousness is no longer required, you're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. You have a roof over your head and a craft that matters, and people who are counting on you to show up tomorrow and do it all again. That's more than a lot of people have. That's enough. The glass bird sits on the shelf catching moonlight. A thing of beauty serving no purpose except to exist. Like Venice itself. Like the impossible city built on mud and ambition. Like the furnaces that burn day and night, turning sand into glory. Tomorrow will come soon enough. But for now, there's just this. The softness of sleep reaching up to claim you. The quiet of the dormitory. The distant heartbeat of a city that never quite stops. Let it come. Let sleep take you the way it took Matteo in his workshop dormitory on Morarano in April 1432. Let the sounds fade. Let the day's work fall away. Let your thoughts slow and soften and finally stop. You've earned this rest. Take it. The lagoon will still be there in the morning. The furnace will still be burning. The glass will still need to be made. But that's tomorrow's concern. Right now, you're just tired, deeply, thoroughly tired. The good kind of tired that comes from honest work, from making something with your own hands, from surviving another day in a city that demands everything and gives back just enough to keep you coming back for more. Your hands smell like smoke. They always do. You've washed them a dozen times today, and they still smell like the furnace. That smell will never fully leave. It's part of you now. Part of being a glass blower, part of being Venetian or close enough. The sounds grow distant. The world fades. Centuries will pass. The Venice, will change beyond recognition. The wooden bridges will be replaced with stone. The plague will eventually be understood and controlled. The Bentora will be destroyed by Napoleon's army. The Republic itself will fall, but people will still live here, still work here, still make glass on Murano, still dream of making something beautiful. Some things don't change. The human need to create doesn't change. The desire to shape beauty from raw materials, that's eternal. So let it go now. Let Venice fade into dreams. Let the workshop fall away. Let tomorrow worry about itself. You're safe. You're young. You're learning. You're alive. That's enough. More than enough. The glass bird watches from its shelf, permanent and fragile all at once. Like everything beautiful, like you sleep now. The furnace will still be burning in the morning. The city will still be rising from the lagoon. The impossible will still be happening day after day, century after century. But right now, there's only this. The long, slow drift into darkness, into rest, into dreams of glass and light, and cities built on water. Good night.